Bitcoin has crashed from 117K to 109K in less than a week. And you gotta give him credit. Peter Schiff turns on the troll machine like no other to capitalize on the moment. But here's the people out there like Peter Schiff who think the Bitcoin bull market is over.
What's your take on Bitcoin's price going down, everyone freaking out online, and this big liquidation?
Yeah. If you follow some folks on Twitter, they'll say the cycle's over, which is crazy because I think we're just at the beginning.
Pack it up, boys.
What the heck is going on? Why did Bitcoin crash from 117K to much lower? A Bitcoin analyst gives us an idea into what might be actually happening. But despite it all, we're still going much higher. I'm going to give you 5 bullish signals to hold on to on a day like today. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. Why is Bitcoin crashing? This is the question that everyone has on their mind. I thought we were in a bull market and the price always goes up and to the right. CIO and partner of ProCap Bitcoin, Jeff Park, had some ideas as to why we've seen such a large crash.
Pack it up, boys.
But it is jarring, right? Because I think it was a pretty large liquidation. I believe it was the largest year to date. Bitcoin has seen something close to $2 billion. And it did wake us down from 117, 118K all the way to 112 pretty fast. So it is jarring. But anyone who's been around Bitcoin long enough knows these things are actually fairly typical, par for the course. What's I think interesting is it did also elevate implied volatility as a result for the first time in a while. So it jumped from what was already a very low denominator starting point in the low 30s to maybe like mid-high 30s. Funnily enough, it's all coming back in again. And so I think the market is pricing in further inaction from this price point, or more optimism that there isn't going to be more liquidation to come through. So why did it happen? Timing wise, I think the most notable reality is it's right after FOMC. And there was some leverage built into the system for perhaps people having expectations that the rate cut would signal a start of a cycle. But what Powell ended up coming online to share on Monday was that this was a risk management decision, right? This wasn't actually to initiate a further rate cutting cycle, even though I think everyone in the market believes it will be and it is the case. But Powell did hedge that this was more preemptive than not from a risk management perspective, not to signify the start of something new.
Okay, the market was anticipating Jerome Powell signaling a shift in regime from a quantitative tightening or a neutral position at a Fed to all-out party and rate cuts, all the way down to the low 4s or high 3s in percentage terms. And clearly, when he didn't signal that, well, that ended and muted the hopes that the market had for a rally to happen in September. And honestly, the September FOMC meetings have never been that good for Bitcoin. Historically, the month of September has been Bitcoin's lowest performing month. But let me give you some reasons to be bullish. Number 1, its best performing month, October, or some people call it Uptober, is just around the corner. And if Bitcoin holds on and ends the month positive, well, it's at a 100% correlation to being positive. Oh, and if Bitcoin somehow holds on to have a positive month in September, well, there's a 100% correlation that it goes up in October. Number 2 bullish signal for Bitcoin. The ultra rich are buying right now. We're still in a transition phase from Bitcoin being viewed as a risk on asset to a risk off asset in a hedge. And that's why the ultra rich are accumulating. Listen to these comments from a $200 billion hedge fund manager of Tiger Global and what he sees from the ultra rich and their intentions of buying more Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. Has it taken some time to I see it every quarter. There's a little more Bitcoin, a little more Bitcoin. I feel like it's finally crossing that hurdle of we got to own it.
Yeah. So Bitcoin as a market is still only a tenth the size of gold, but they both are secure assets in members' mind. For the first time, people aren't talking about Bitcoin just as speculation, but actually an alternative asset that can be held during tough times. Not everybody believes in it, but those that do are making a big splash.
Well, it went from so big.
Speaking of the ultra rich, Apple CEO Tim Cook said that he's been holding Bitcoin for a long time in a recent interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Well, let me ask you a different question, because you just said that you might not do it personally. Do you own crypto and any Bitcoin or Ethereum? Would you play around with this?
I do. Yeah, I think it's reasonable to own it as a part of a diversified portfolio. And I'm not giving anybody investment advice, by the way.
When did you get interested in it?
I've been interested in it for a while. I've been researching it and so forth. And so I think it's interesting.
The elite start to make plans that we see today 4 years ago. This interview clip came out about Larry Fink proving this exact point, in that in 2020 and 2021, they had Michael Saylor come in and consult them on this whole thing about Bitcoin long before the ETFs dropped.
And we used to bring in all these different people who were big believers in it, like Michael Saylor from MicroStrategies. I mean, Michael came to our office when the stock was in the teens, but he was a huge believer in it, transformed his company. I mean, I could just say all these different people came in and talked. And then we became, we became a leader in working with the SEC and trying to move forward in this. And fast forward now, a little more than 18 months when we first started creating a Bitcoin ETF. Today, IBIT is $86 billion.
Speaking of bullish signal number 3 and BlackRock, Bitcoin products are being built out there in the market. Like this new ETF product, the premium income product just dropped by BlackRock. This is what I assume can be a covered call strategy, allowing people who own IBIT shares to earn a yield on the shares that they have by selling out of the money covered calls to other investors and collecting a premium. And speaking of Michael Saylor, who was consulting BlackRock, he's also been consulting another potential big buyer, the US government.
First, I do want to start with the fact that there are reports that you were in Washington last week meeting with policymakers about this strategic Bitcoin reserve bill. How are you advising lawmakers right now, and why is the case there to create a strategic reserve?
Well, I think Bitcoin's good for the nation, and then the country would benefit. We did buy something like 78% of the entire United States for about $40 million over the past 100 years or so. So I think the United States ought to own a large part of cyberspace, and Bitcoin is the next frontier.
This leads me to bullish point number 3, the consistent adoption of Bitcoin buying through the form of corporate companies buying Bitcoin.
I think the real story in Bitcoin right now is corporate adoption. We've got a consistent acquisition of Bitcoin by the big ETFs like BlackRock, and that's taking up all the natural supply, and they're doing that on behalf of institutional investors. But these 180 companies that are capitalizing on Bitcoin are buying even more than the natural supply being created by the miners, and they're putting upward pressure on the price. And I think that as we work through the resistance of late and some macro headwinds, we'll actually see Bitcoin start to move up smartly again toward the end of the year.
This is a trend that's not going to stop. Matt Cole, the CEO of Strive, made waves last week when Strive acquired Similar Scientific in an all-stock deal. It was acquired at a 210% premium in an all-stock transaction, signaling that the main goal is to have a strong balance sheet and to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. With this combined merger, they'll now own 10,900 Bitcoin, which will put them in the top 10 of all Bitcoin treasury companies. And the reason that he's doing it is because he said that in 5 years, you won't be able to stack Bitcoin like this.
We think that the digital gold rush is a 10 to 15 year phenomenon, and over time it's going to be harder and harder to stack sats for these companies. And so that's why we do think it is early that people that are able to get going are able to build pretty large stacks of Bitcoin. But I think the focus, and you see this focus across this room, is stack sats. There's a million ways you can monetize a massive balance sheet over time, but that exercise is fruitless right now during the digital gold rush era, because to your point, in 5 years, you won't be able to get anything close to what you can get today.
This leads me to bullish point number 4. Jeff Park, in that interview with Pump, he said that he saw Bitcoin CME open options interest rise above $6 billion, meaning that there's some people who are betting that Bitcoin's going to go much higher from here with future options contracts. And we also recently saw a whale purchase $171 million worth of Bitcoin in a few short days. Someone knows something's coming. And this is why we believe that Bitcoin is still going to have a strong finish to the end of the year, just like Jeff Park said.
There's a lot of people you mentioned earlier, they think the bull market's over, but there's plenty of people who still think, hey, this is just kind of a lull. Where do you come out on kind of from here through the end of the year with Bitcoin kind of sentiment and performance?
Yeah, I think some degree of kind of disappointment that Bitcoin's lagging so much, right? I mean, if you look at all the other
gold bugs, they're beating us.
The gold bugs, but even, like I said, the Swiss franc and the equities market, and generally what people track as global M2 liquidity having outperformed to 160 trillion, and how Bitcoin should actually have played a bigger catch up to it. I think there are legitimately kind of disappointment within the Bitcoin investors, but I think sometimes these are actually the coiled spring effects, as I've observed, that really can create some meaningfully strong moves in a rapid pace. The fact that I'll share with you is that actually, I haven't seen many people talk about it, but right now is the highest options open interest for the Bitcoin CME options. It's at 6 billion. It's the highest it's ever been. So I don't know what that means in terms of what traditional Wall Street investors are hedging or speculating for, but despite the futures open interest not having surpassed its peak from last year at the election, despite the volumes not having peaked that time period, the one thing that is at its all-time high is the open interest on Bitcoin CME futures options. And so I think there's still a lot of excitement to be had for imagining volatility could pick up. And I still think it's a generational opportunity to be able to take advantage of low volatility when the effect of that cold spring could actually create some asymmetric outcomes. So I'm still very bullish, and I think that in the next 3 months, we're going to see something pretty meaningful.
But before I get to my number 5 bullish point, let's thank our sponsors. Ledn has been the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans since 2018. They've issued over $9 billion worth of loans to tens of thousands of customers. And they allow you to unlock liquidity in your Bitcoin without selling your Bitcoin. People who own rare, scarce, desirable assets don't sell them. They borrow against them. And that's exactly what you're allowed to do. You're allowed to borrow up to 50% loan to value in fiat against your Bitcoin that you post to the platform. So if you want a $2,000 fiat loan, you post $4,000 worth of Bitcoin collateral. It's pretty simple. Get started with no credit checks and loans at just 12.4% by going to learn.ledn.io/simply. Our next sponsor is the Bitcoin Way, the leader in helping you to take sovereignty over your Bitcoin wealth and Bitcoin assets privately, safely, securely, and confidently. They pair you with a coach just like you were getting a trainer for anything else, whether it's your fitness, whether it's your kids in their sports. You can also get a coach when it comes to your Bitcoin and your wealth. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with their team, and they'll walk you through exactly what steps you need to take in order to secure your Bitcoin today and tomorrow for future generations. Go to thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin to get started. Despite Peter Schiff trolling Bitcoin right now, Bitcoin is still a better asset and investment than gold. It's more portable, divisible, verifiably scarce, and it's preparing you for owning something digital in cyberspace for the future digital world to come.
A huge run right now, too. It's at $3,800 an ounce. It's basically trading at record after record this year. But Bitcoin hasn't sort of moved lockstep. So how to think about that analogy in this environment?
JP Morgan said gold is money, everything else is credit. This morning I said Bitcoin is money, everything else is credit. The success of gold is indicative of the demand of mainstream investors to have a bearer instrument that's a long-term store of value, that's not a currency derivative and doesn't have counterparty risk to a corporation. Gold fits that bill. Bitcoin fits that bill even better, and it's sort of got the digital upside. You can't teleport gold, and you can't program gold to vibrate at 1 million times a second on a computer. So Bitcoin is the technology version of gold. It's digital gold. It's going to be, in my opinion, 10x bigger than gold, but they're the same idea.
Bitcoin is a superior asset, and while other people are risk off, this is a good opportunity to accumulate with a long-term view and mindset of Bitcoin. 5 reasons to be bullish, just to review. October or Uptober is Bitcoin's best performing month, which is right around the corner. The wealthy and the ultra rich are changing their tune on Bitcoin, and they're accumulating now. They don't make plans for the future in the future. They're making them at this point, and they're starting to buy Bitcoin. Bullish signal number 3, products continue to be built on top of Bitcoin, and people are going to issue digital credit instruments on top of this scarce sovereign asset. Option number 4, people are buying in large quantities and accumulating lots of Bitcoin. There's large options interest out there, $6.2 billion to be specific, and it's not stopping. And number 5, nothing's changed about Bitcoin being a better asset than gold. And when gold runs, Bitcoin sprints. What's not to like? If you haven't already got your tickets down to the Mining Disrupt Conference from November 11th through November 13th in Dallas, Texas, well, do so. Use the promo code SimplyBitcoin for 20% off your tickets. We can't wait to meet you there. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.